my advice doesn't apply to everyone, but it does apply to everyone who's overweight or obese or severely obese. It applies to everyone with diabetes or prediabetes. It applies to everyone with fatty liver or metabolic syndrome or hypertension. Because if you eat what I tell you to eat and avoid what I tell you to avoid, your chronic medical disease will improve or go completely away.
Dr. Ken Berry.
Yes.
How are you, sir?
Man, if I was any better, I'd need a special permit.
I love it.
I'm doing well. It's
Welcome
good to be
to
with you
Idaho.
guys
Yeah.
in person this time.
Yeah. We did that one Zoom about a year ago, and we've been talking about making this happen since then. You have been heavily requested by our audience.
Ah, excellent.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of people fooled.
Yeah, no, you're the authority in the carnivore diet. So Jeremy started carnivore how long ago?
Earlier this year. So I turned 40 years old a couple of years ago, realized I wasn't feeling too great, didn't recognize my own physique, started doing a little research, came across a lot of your video content, decided to implement it for myself and had amazing results.
Yeah.
Started feeling much better, lost a bunch of weight, physique came back. So thank you very much for all the fantastic info that you put out there.
That's my job.
We appreciate it. Can you kind of go into just your own personal background in the medical field, your areas of expertise?
Yeah. So initially, my first foray into the medical field was as an X-ray tech, because I was not sure that I could handle the blood and guts, right? So I'm like, well, I'll go to X-ray school. It's just 2 years. And then, I'll get a paycheck from that. And then also it'll be a good trial and error whether I can handle it, because I wanted to be a surgeon or an ER doctor. I wanted to do something. I didn't want to be a prescription doctor. And so did X-ray for a few years and loved it and said, yeah, okay, fine. I can handle this. And I can just tell you the worst smell in the world I experienced as an X-ray tech. It is the vomit of somebody who's been drinking liquor all day and then wrecked their car and then threw up on themselves and wet their pants and all that. That's the worst smell in the world. And I've smelled lots of bad things as a doctor, as an ER doctor.
I'm sure.
And that's the worst. And so, X-ray prepared me like, if you can handle that, you can handle medical school. And so went to medical school, went to be a surgeon until I realized that surgeons have to get up at 4:30 every morning for the rest of their life. And I thought, well, no, I'm not going to do that. Maybe I'll be a OBGYN because they do lots of surgery. But then I realized that all pregnant women go into labor at 3:30 in the morning.
Oh, every time.
Every time. And I'm like, no, not going to do that. And so then I was at the University of Tennessee in Memphis, and they have a very advanced family medicine program there. And you get to do lots of stuff: scopes, C-sections, deliveries, circumcisions, hundreds of dermatological and gynecological procedures. So I could do that and do lots of things and not just write prescriptions. And I'm like, okay, and they can start their clinic at any time they want to. So I'm like, yeah, that's for me. And so all my teenage and 20s, I was very, very slender. In my mind, I was too skinny. And I would work out and I would take all the stuff, Mega Mass 2000, trying to put on some weight, could not put on any weight. And then after my residency training, I was working full-time in the ER as an ER doc, and also started a clinic and was working at least 40 hours in the clinic. And so was just eating junk, just eating whatever, right? And I was trained allopathically, and most allopathically trained, that's just a normal MD. That diet really doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. You eat whatever, it's fine. If you get sick, I'll put you on a prescription. But I'm a common sense country boy from Tennessee. Things have to make sense. And so if I said, hey, there's this great lady you need to get to do your hair, but her hair is jacked up, but she'll do you a good job, you'd be like, no. If I said, hey, I know this great mechanic, take your truck. He can't get his truck to start, but you should take your truck. You'd be like, no, that's dumb. Why would I do that? So I, over the first few years of my practice, became severely obese. I weighed 297 pounds. And I am slightly taller than you. So I like to think,
Just slightly.
just barely.
Yeah, just a
I
little
like to
bit.
think I carried it well, but I was fat. I was very fat. And I was pre-diabetic. I had to fix that. I couldn't be the mechanic whose car wouldn't start.
Right.
I couldn't be the fat pre-diabetic doctor. I couldn't do that. That's not honest. It's not, I don't even consider that to be moral. Imagine if I come into your room and like, now you're going to have to lose a few pounds.
Yeah.
You'd be like, okay.
Kettle pot, Doc.
I'll get right on that, Doc. You know, and back then it was this button on my shirt that was in danger of popping at any minute and putting out an eye.
Yep.
And so I was like, I can't do that. I've got to fix that. And so I started following the American Diabetes Association diet that they put out for people with diabetes. I'm like, just obviously they're the experts, right?
Which is what? What is the recommendation?
So it's basically lots of fruits and vegetables and whole grain breads and fruit juice, and avoid red meat and saturated fat, and don't dare even think about bacon, much less eat it. Very low fat, and it even though they don't call it a high carb diet, it's very, very high carb diet, right? So I'm like, well, I mean, they're the experts, right? Literally every country in the world, a lot of people don't know this, but every country in the world follows the United States Association's guidelines. So the American Heart Association, American Diabetes, other countries are just like, they just copy paste because, you know, they consider the U.S. to be the preeminent knowledge leaders or whatever. So I followed that for 90 days and I started jogging 3 days a week. And I hate to jog. Just get that on the record. Hate it.
terrible.
Hate it. Hate it. Okay.
I'm with you.
But I know I did it. And I know I followed the diet, right? And so there's this thing that doctors get mad at me when I tell this secret, but all doctors suspect patients of being non-compliant. So when I tell you, hey, stop eating Doritos and honey buns, stop drinking Pepsi, I don't suspect that you did that. I suspect that you come back in 3 or 6 months and like, oh yeah, I quit all that stuff, but yet your diabetes is worse. That's weird. So I was like, he's full of crap. He didn't do that, right? He's been laying on the couch eating jelly donuts. That's all doctors suspect patients of being non-compliant. And I was the same way. But here's the problem. I live with me. I am me. I know what I did for 90 days. That should have, if that was the proper diet for somebody with prediabetes, it should have made it much, much better. If that's the proper diet for severe obesity, I was severely obese, that should have at least improved it, but it didn't do either. My A1C actually went up a little more and I gained 2 or 3 more pounds.
Wow.
And I'm like, you can imagine what an epiphany that would be. Like, I'm kind of speechless here. Like, what's going on? Am I some special snowflake that this doesn't work on me, but it works on everybody else? And I had to face the obvious conclusion that this is a bunch of crap. This doesn't work, right? Only if you severely calorie restrict will this help you lose weight and improve your diabetes. Well, let's talk about calorie restriction. First of all, I was an animal biologist before I went to medical school. And so, I kind of studied the comparative anatomy and physiology of different mammals and different animals. There's no animal on planet Earth that calorie restricts. Another term for that is semi-starvation. That's what that is. There is no animal on Earth that you can semi-starve that won't eventually break out of the enclosure that you have them in and go eat. That includes us. And so I try to explain to people, this is not a moral failing on your part that you have hunger. Hunger's your friend. Hunger's good. It's good that you have hunger. And anybody that rotates animals on pasture can tell you, if you keep them in a paddock for one day too long, suddenly those docile sheep or cows, they'll jump the fence. They'll get out immediately if you're a bad rancher and you leave them a day too long. They'll just hop right. That fence is a psychological barrier, but they can jump right over that.
Our sheep actually ate their electric fence.
And then there's that kind of sheep. And so that makes you understand, that's just common sense.
Yes.
You cannot expect an animal to semi-starve itself for the rest of its life. We don't expect that of sheep or cows or any other animal. but we expect it of ourselves, don't we?
Yeah.
Oh, you need to cut back. Well, what
Self-control.
does cut back mean? That means don't eat until you're full. That's what that means, right?
Yeah.
Why are we the only species of mammal on planet Earth that should semi-starve ourselves for best health? Why is it that every other mammal gets to eat until they're comfortably stuffed, eat until they're full? And then they don't drink their body weight in ounces of water a day. And also they don't get on the treadmill every day. They just eat a species appropriate diet until they're full. Then they go take a nap, or they go play, or they go have sex, or they just go do what animals do, which is what we also do, right? And what we should be doing. Hopefully, right. Right, exactly.
Don't get any ideas.
So I'm just saying, it's natural. It's okay. So why do we expect humans to be different? We're mammals. I'm sorry. Regardless of your religion, you have to admit we're mammals. Yes. We're warm-blooded. We feed our babies milk. We make our own milk. That is a mammal, right? So I was just faced with this. Like this, none of this makes any sense. Eat a high-carb diet. All carbohydrates are made of some combination of starch and fiber. Starch breaks down immediately into sugar, and that includes the starch from a jelly donut, but also from a non-GMO organic loaf of fresh-baked sourdough bread made from the starter by a beautiful wife who's barefoot in her kitchen and pregnant.
Wait, you can eat sourdough on this diet?
Well, think of this. Okay, it's a great question. So a cheap loaf of bunny bread at the supermarket, just full of junk, right?
Garbage.
But what's the carb count? Because it's mainly starch, which breaks down into sugar, right? Now, you make a loaf of sourdough bread, everything's perfect, pristine. It has 3 ingredients, and it's perfection, made from ancient grain, right? What's the carb count? The same. That's right. And
so no sourdough.
Right. But it depends. So if you're super slender, super healthy, super active, and you don't react to carbohydrates like I do, you can probably have some sourdough. In fact, I think homemade sourdough bread is the least bad bread option. If you're going to eat bread, it should be homemade sourdough made from a starter.
Now, I also make mine with whey instead of water. So
excellent. So does that change the carb count?
No,
it doesn't. That's right. That's right. Exactly right. And that's the problem. But it is the least bad. So I'm giving you a compliment, although it sounds left-handed. It's the least bad bread you can possibly make for your family. And for little kids who are super healthy and slim, and it's totally fine for them, right? But if you're 40 and you're starting to grow places you don't want to grow, or if you're like me, I was in my mid-30s and was severely obese, then sourdough would be a ridiculous thing for me to think, I should eat that. That's sourdough. But on the American Diabetes Association handout, whole grain bread.
Yeah, it's like the whole base
whole grain bread.
Foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it all breaks down into sugar, which spikes your blood sugar, which raises your insulin. So the spiked blood sugar, that is one of the definitions of diabetes, high blood sugar. But then the high insulin makes you, almost virtually forces the body to store fat. If your insulin's high, you cannot burn your fat. And so that's why millions of people fail on the ADA diet, the AHA's DASH diet, all of the diets. And that's why the diet gurus have to come back around to, you're just eating too much food. You need to cut back. You need to semi-starve yourself. And we're back to that again, right? But there's one diet. There's really a diet spectrum where you don't have to do that. Because what I found out from years of research and reading, and I'm not the first guy to discover this. There are many, many doctors who have discovered this multiple times over the course of human history. The oldest doc that I found was back in 1797. Forget his name, but he said, man, if you have somebody who's overweight and who has diabetes, if you'll put them on an all-meat, fatty meat diet, they lose weight, they get healthier, they feel amazing, and their diabetes gets better. But he didn't have something then that we have now. He wrote a book, got kind of regionally famous. Everybody tried it. It worked for everybody. But then when he died, his diet kind of died with him.
Right.
And that's happened multiple times over the decades, over the centuries. About every 20 to 50 years, a doctor will stumble upon this all meat diet. And he's never heard of it. He's never read about it. He's like, oh my God, this is like magic for people who are fat or people who are diabetic. Oh, it just fixes them.
Yeah, like 20 years ago, it was all Atkins.
That's
Everybody was
exactly
on
right. Atkins is the latest guy. But even back in the 70s, Atkins didn't have something that we have now. He could write a book. He could go on TV shows. But when Atkins slipped on the ice and died, it kind of went away, didn't it? Right?
It did.
It just kind of went away. But now we have something that none of those doctors have ever had. We have social media, which is the ultimate campfire. Because since before recorded history, humans go out, we forage, we hunt, we gather, we live our life, and then we all would gather back around the campfire in the evening.
Yes.
And I would teach you what I'd learned, and you would teach me what you learned. And then we would all as a group learn from that. And now sometimes what you thought you had learned was not true, right? And so I would go try it and be like, that didn't work. What's wrong with him? So the next night we would have a little discussion again, and everybody would be like, he's stupid. That didn't work, right? But we would hash it out, maybe fight it out, but then ultimately the tribe would benefit because we would all finally come to the right answer, or at least close enough to the right answer so that the tribe would benefit and we could move forward and we could have a higher survival rate. Does that make sense? And so now that's where we're at. We've got the largest campfire that humanity's ever had. And so this podcast we're doing right now, people on another continent can hear this and go, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it for 90 days. And so they'll try it for 90 days. If it works, boom, there you go. They'll tell everybody they know. If it doesn't work, they'll be like, that was dumb. I knew that was dumb. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's the trial and error. It's the self-experimentation. He thinks he's learned something new. Let me try it. It didn't work for me. That's obviously he was wrong. Or it did. It did work for me. He was right. I need to teach everybody that I care about that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so just years of me experimenting and reading the nutrition literature to start with. It turns out that's not very helpful when it comes to feeding a human being. The nutrition research literature is kind of worthless.
You just have to dive in. You have to try it.
That's right. And so I started reading outside the box. I read Atkins. I got a paperback copy for $0.25 at a rummage sale. And I read Lauren Cordain's The Paleo Diet and Mark Sisson's Primal Blueprint. And based on those three books, I'm like, well, this is exactly backwards to everything I was taught. And what the ADA says. Let me try it. Try it for 90 days, right? Because I already done my ADA 90 days and it didn't help a bit.
Right.
But after 90 days of this, which is basically lots of fatty meat, bacon was back on the menu. I would eat bread, but not nearly as much because it wasn't touted as the answer, the solution, the health food. It was just like, if you want a little bread, have it, but don't eat too much, right? Cut back on all the grains, cut back on the fruit juice, cut back on all the carbs. And after 90 days of that, my A1C was almost back to normal, and I'd lost 20 or 30 pounds. And I hadn't jogged. Let's put that on the record, too. I did not jog.
That's a winner.
I was still very active on the farm and stuff, but I didn't jog. And so there, you see that? Immediate feedback that I knew I had experienced that for 90 days. I did that, and it did this. So immediately I knew, okay, I got to cut the carbs and keep them cut, or I'm going to become a type 2 diabetic, and I can't do that. And also I've lost 20 or 30 pounds. Huzzah. I'm now going to be able to walk into your room and say, hey, you need to lose a few pounds, and you won't be looking at my belly, maybe nearly as much. And so I kept researching and reading, and I kept hearing about this ketogenic diet. And basically a ketogenic diet is just lower carb than low carb, lower carb than paleo. And I'm like, okay, I'll cut the carbs a little more because that seemed to help. So I cut them some more, and I did keto, which for most people is under 20 to 50 total grams of carbohydrates a day. A1C back to normal. Lost another 15, 20 pounds. I'm like, okay. So it absolutely has something to do with the carbs.
Yes.
Right? And then I kept seeing this crazy Sean Baker doing this carnivore diet. And I'm like, well, that is the lowest possible amount of carbohydrates you could eat in a day. So it was kind of a normal progression from low carb to keto to carnivore, seems like the next step. And so I had a Facebook page at that point, and I said, hey guys, let's do a month of carnivore. I'm going to try this out. And at the end of that month, I was even metabolically even more healthy, lost more weight. But something else had happened, which was really weird, because all of my adult life, I'd always had severe heartburn. Turns out I've got a hiatal hernia that I saw on an x-ray. I used to take 2 Nexium a day, which is a lot of medicine for, and still would have to have Rolaids or Tums in my pocket at all times. Keto made that about 80% better. I was off the Nexium, but I still had those Rolaids or Tums right there at all times. After a month of carnivore, I got to thinking about it, and I couldn't remember where I had left my roll of Tums because I hadn't needed it, hadn't taken it.
Which you would think greasy meat and stuff is what you're going to burp up.
Right, exactly. You would think that would cause indigestion and heartburn the way we're falsely taught. But the truth of the matter is the exact opposite. I had not had a single day as an adult without heartburn until I went on a diet of only meat and eggs. And I still have the hiatal hernia. I'll have that my whole life. But I didn't have heartburn anymore. And I'm like, okay. And plus my blood sugar's getting better. I'm still losing weight. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing this carnivore thing. So I let all my followers off the hook. I'm like, okay, good job, carnivore month. But I kept doing it. And I've been carnivore now for going on 9 years.
Wow. Do you do dairy or cheese?
I used to. And so I carry, I'm 6'3", and I stay about 220 to 226, depending on the season, how much I'm outside, what I'm doing. But when I was including lots of dairy, which is carnivore, right? Comes from animals, I was hanging out at 230 to 237, right? Which is much better than 297.
Right.
But I was like, yeah, because when I graduated high school, I weighed 195 pounds, right? So I had been that before. So I kind of wanted to get closer to that. And without the dairy, I stay about 225.
Okay.
Which I'm very, very happy with. And all my markers, my lab markers are stone cold normal, optimal. And so for me, dairy, I can overeat it. And anytime something is hyper palatable, that means you can eat past your satiety hormones signal. Because when you're just eating meat and eggs, when you're full, right? And I could invite you guys over for a cookout, grill the most perfect ribeyes ever, and me and you would eat like 2 cavemen. But when we were full, you would know you're full. And if I would be like, hey, I just got another ribeye off the grill, you'd be like, no, dude, no, I'm done. I'm done. I cannot eat another bite, even though you still love ribeye. And if that's the perfect ribeye, you're like, I can't, I'm done. But what if I brought out the hot fudge cake?
Oh, he would eat that for sure. Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And so that tells you right there, that's a huge giveaway that is hyper palatable. Right.
So we're overriding our nature.
Overriding your natural satiety hormones that say you've eaten enough nutrition. Right. Stop eating.
Yeah, it's like after Thanksgiving and they bring out the pie and everyone's like, ooh, pie. After
you're in physical pain.
Yeah.
You've eaten so much food. But when they bring out the pie, you're like, yeah, I could have a bite.
I know.
I'll power through.
I'll power through. That's right.
Yeah.
And magically, you have more stomach space now, and you can eat an entire piece of pie instead of just one bite.
Right.
That's hyperpalatability, and that's something that we all have a different kind of tolerance for that. Some people can eat cheese and dairy and take it or leave it. It doesn't really do that, but most dairy contains at least some degree of something called casomorphins. So morphin kind of rhymes with morphine, right? Which it can activate your pleasure centers and give you positive feedback and override in some of us. And I'm one of those people. I love any kind of dairy. Like I've never found a dairy I didn't like, right? And so after our ribeyes to the point of popping, if you brought out some kind of dairy custard or some kind of dairy dessert, I could eat a cheesecake. I could eat another pound, even though I could not eat one more bite of that ribeye.
Right.
So for me, dairy is super habit forming, super overriding of my satiety hormones. But I don't think everybody's like that.
Is there a link between dairy and inflammation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And here's why. If you're just drinking milk, even raw milk, I know, please don't hate me. Right? And so let me just say this. If you're going to drink milk as an adult, properly sourced, fresh, raw milk is the least bad, kind of like your sourdough. It's the least bad dairy, right? If you're going to drink milk. Milk is for baby mammals. It helps them gain weight as quickly as possible. That's what it's for.
We've got one of those.
Yeah.
That's
and
what
we
it's
have
for.
one at 8 weeks and
That's
it's
why
doubled
you,
his birth weight.
That's why you feed him milk instead of rice cakes, because you want him to grow and put on weight. You don't want him to not grow and put on weight. But most adults don't really want to put on weight.
Yeah, we're not aiming to double our weight.
Exactly. Right. And so, because we're not going to get any taller, darn it, but we sure the heck can get wider, can't we?
They told us if we drank milk, we'd get taller.
Yeah, not after those growth plates close. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. But so that's the whole point of milk, which all dairy comes from milk, right? Now, it's not the fat macro of dairy that's the problem. Dairy fat is the perfect fat for humans, and that's why butter is on my beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, is because it's just pure dairy fats. It doesn't have the other things I'm about to talk about. So when you drink milk, it's full of lactose, right, which is galactose and glucose combined. It's a disaccharide. That just makes your body so happy. You're so happy. Your endorphins are going and your blood sugar's going up, right, and you're storing fat. That's what it's for. It's supposed to make your blood sugar go up and make your insulin go up so you'll store fat, and so you'll also build bone and build muscle because you're growing. But me and you ain't growing. We're done growing.
Right.
So we only grow one direction, and that's sideways. So also the casein and the whey proteins in dairy, for many people, they're quite inflammatory. And for some people, that inflammation manifests itself in the skin. For some people in the gut, for many people in the gut, for many people in their joints. They'll have joint pain, arthritis, when they either ingest dairy or ingest too much dairy. Some people mentally, if they ingest dairy, it's like a metronome slowing down.
Right. You're in a fog.
Slow motion,
Yeah.
foggy. Yeah, exactly. That's the endorphins. You feel good. You got that nice buzz, but you're also working at half speed.
Yeah.
Mentally. And for some people, that can even manifest as a worsening of mental health, right?
Yeah, interesting.
For some people, that manifests as depression, anxiety, or it can worsen other more severe mental health issues.
Well, RFK Jr. has been warning us about fluoride for a while, and the government now admits to the fact that fluoride is linked to lower IQ. In a study done by JAMA Pediatrics, one of the top medical journals, scientists found that fluoride levels over 2 milligrams per liter of water cause more than a 2-point drop in children's IQ scores.
Well, as you all know, we have 5 kids, and that's why we use Cove Pure to purify our water. You've heard us talk about Cove Pure before. It's a water filtration system that sits on top of your counter. You don't have to drill any holes or call a plumber to get it set up. You just fill it with tap water, plug it in, and it gets straight to work.
Their clear wave reverse osmosis technology is lab certified to remove up to 99.9% of impurities in your water. Anything that isn't water, meaning fluoride, arsenic, and forever chemicals, all of that gets filtered out, leaving you with pure water.
Yeah, let me tell you, once you try Cove Pure water, you're never going to go back. It's the best tasting water that we've ever had. Plus, what I love about Cove Pure is it lets you have water exactly the way you like it. Whatever temperature you want, just push a button, cold, hot, warm, almost instantly.
Now, if you happen to like fluoride, that's totally fine. There are tons of ways that you can get it through toothpaste or even mouthwash. But the government should never force us to ingest it. So take back your right to choose and start enjoying clean, fresh drinking water by simply clicking the link down in our description box below or by going to covepure.com/NWOS. And for a limited time, you can get a special discount of $200 off Cove Pure. That's really interesting. So our daughter, she's 18. She's trying to figure out what's going on with her. She just took a Hashimoto's test, which made me think of Nisha also. And because at first she thought she had endometriosis.
Right.
And then now she's thinking, okay, maybe it's Hashimoto's. So she tried carnivore. She only lasted 3 weeks.
Yep.
And she was eating a lot of dairy and cheese. And she's like, I have anxiety through the roof. My joints are aching. I feel awful.
Yeah.
So
many people, when they try carnivore, dairy is a huge component of it. And that's why a lot of people will report back around the campfire, I tried that carnivore, man. It made my joints ache, or my anxiety was it's the dairy.
Okay, she was eating mass amounts of cheese.
Yes. I told her it was allowed, and I think she went a little crazy.
Exactly, because cheese is hyper palatable for many, many people. You can overeat that, right?
He was making like eggs with cheese, and then meat with cheese, and shrimp with cheese.
100%.
Cheese.
And cheese on top of the cheese. Yes, 100%, because cheese is carnivore, technically. But you can overeat it because, think about it. Milk is full of nutrition. Nobody argues that. Mm-hmm. Milk is super nutritious. But riddle me this. If milk is a proper food for adult mammals, why does the bull who drank milk as a calf, why does he never try to go back to the udder? Ever. Never even tries it. Wouldn't occur to him, right? You're telling me, because life always finds a way, right? Milk is nutrient dense. There's no doubt about that. So why is there not a weasel or a possum or a raccoon? Why is it there's some little mammal that has learned, if I sneak into the herd of buffalo in the middle of the night, there's free nutrition just hanging there. No mammal does that. Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point. Mammal. I've never thought of that.
Right.
And animals have more sense than us.
But think about it. An opossum will eat anything, right? I mean, literally anything.
Yeah.
But they will not do that. Why? They have the machinery to digest milk. They drank milk as a baby opossum or a baby raccoon or a baby weasel, whatever. But at some point, they just know, I don't drink milk anymore. Humans are the only mammal on the earth that are not domesticated.
What are we supposed to put in our coffee?
Black coffee.
Black coffee.
Black coffee, yeah.
I have 4 creams in mine. Now I feel bad.
And full disclosure, I'm not like a guy who's never drank milk. I'm not lactose intolerant. I freaking love milk. I love dairy. I used to have a little coffee in my heavy cream. Right? When I was first doing low carb keto, that kind of helped me, got me through because it was so freaking delicious.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. But and that's totally fine as a stepwise approach. Right. Understanding that the ultimate goal is to eat a species specific diet, a mammalian appropriate diet, which doesn't include dairy as an adult. And I think, and let me be clear, I think it's fine for many people to have a little bit of dairy occasionally. I think that's fine. Right. Keep in mind that 2/3 to 3/4 of the entire population of humans on Earth are lactose intolerant. That's not a medical disorder. That's normal. Mm-hmm. It's abnormal to have lactase persistence, which I have because of my genetics. That's actually happened in 5 different cultures, and every single culture was a culture that had access to dairy, either goats or cows or sheep. And so there's always some genetic variability in a population. And so some of the tribe could tolerate some of that milk, and it didn't really, but then everybody else, it just gave them diarrhea or made them throw up or made them feel terrible. And so in times of scarcity, famine, the people who could tolerate it tended to survive and tended to reproduce. And so all of a sudden you've got these pockets of people, and it's not, everybody thinks that it's people in northern latitudes, it's white people that can, but there's actually an African tribe or two that has lactase persistence because dairy made up such a large part of their diet for so many generations. There's a population in Asia, same way. So it's just access to dairy, and then you've got that normal variability of human genetics. Some people can tolerate it, some people can't, and the people who can tolerate it during a famine, they don't starve to death because they can tolerate the dairy. Makes sense.
So keeping that variability in mind, would you say that the carnivore diet is a one-size-fits-all for the most part, or are there? I mean, I'm assuming that there's always going to be exceptions.
There absolutely.
Yeah, I was wondering with gender. Because, male versus female, they talk a lot about how carnivore ups testosterone. So does it work the same for women? Because I hear women complain about it.
So 2 questions there. So first of all, gender, and then variability as far as is carnivore for everybody. Yeah. So let's talk about gender first. So let's go, and I love this analogy. My wife hates it when I say this. let's get in my time machine and let's go back in time 5,000 years. Okay, now we're with the tribe that was our great to the 50th power grandparents. Did the men and women eat anything differently, or did they eat exactly the same thing?
I would think they would eat the same thing. It's
there.
limited.
Yeah.
It's super limited. You ate when the eating was good, as my granddaddy would say. You ate when the eating was good. And so when they made a big kill, everybody ate the meat. Everybody ate, and there looks like in the anthropological literature that there was a little special dispensation for organ meats. Like if you were pregnant, you might get a little bigger piece of this or that or the other. But on average, there was no special diet for women. And so anytime you can make something seem more complicated, there's money to be made there. And this is a law of human nature. If I can complicate this and muddy the waters, then I can sell you a program, or I can sell you a supplement, or I can sell you something. Yes. Oh, it's too complicated for a mere mortal to understand. Women, you thyroid, no. We are the same species. We ate the same exact thing. So there's no meaningful difference between what the diet for a male or female human should be.
So do you think it's more cultural, like women feel
it's 100%
like they need
cultural.
Salad?
It's 100% cultural.
We've been told to eat salad.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. And you'll see the pictures of the smiling woman with the big fork full of salad,
It
right?
looks so yummy.
But let me tell you, do you know that there are more female carnivores than males?
Really?
Everybody wants to paint carnivore as a bro.
Yeah, that's
thing,
surprising.
Right? That's a bro thing.
Yeah, it's a manosphere
But
thing.
I interact with thousands and thousands of carnivores. There's over 1 million people on the planet eating carnivore now. It's at least 65% women, 100%. And it's typically women from 35 to 75. It's that age range.
That's when we start getting pudgy in the middle and we don't like it.
That's right. And it's also when you start having all kinds of other issues.
Yeah.
Carnivore makes those issues better, not worse. And so there's all these complicating things like carb cycling. Oh, you need this kind of carb or that kind of carb, or you need my supplement, or this is too complicated for me to tell you in 2 minutes. You're going to have to buy my program. No, you're the same species. You should eat the same foods. That's the gender question. Now, the proper human diet is what I talk about. Carnivore is but one point on the proper human diet spectrum. The proper human diet spectrum ranges from low carb, under 100 total grams a day. No human on planet Earth needs more than 100 total grams of carbs a day. Maybe if you're an elite level, Olympic level athlete, maybe. Elite level bodybuilder, weightlifter, powerlifter, maybe.
You're saying that because of the glycogen aspect?
Maybe, that's right.
Okay.
I'm still not convinced. I think those people can be in ketosis and burn their own body fat as well.
So if you make a fruit smoothie, you're done for the day. You
There's
put a
just no
banana in
point.
that,
It's just for pleasure. It's not.
Yeah.
There's no overriding biological benefit to ingesting that. Right? It's just for fun. It tastes good.
Yeah.
And you can pretend it's healthy and health wash it, but it's just tasty. Yeah. So low carb, then keto, and different people have different definitions, but it's under 20 to 50 total grams of carbs a day, depending on the authority. And then ketovore, under 10 total grams. That's what Nisha does. And then carnivore, which is as close to zero carb as you can get. That's a proper human diet spectrum. And so for your kids who are young and beautiful and very healthy and slim, as long as you keep them under 100 grams a day and it's real whole food, totally healthy, totally appropriate, totally fine.
Okay.
But if one of them starts to get pudgy, you know exactly. You cut the carbs a little bit. And you don't have to be militant about it. Mm-hmm. You can just cut out the most simple carbs, right? And boom, they lose the little extra weight. They're back to normal, healthy fit.
Yeah. So now you and Nisha live on a beautiful farm. And so you're able to source your own meat. For people that live in a high-rise apartment and they don't have access to, like, let's say they live nowhere by farms. They live in New York City. Mm-hmm. What is the benefit as far as, or I guess the harm for buying, meat and cheese and dairy from the grocery store that's hormones and even organic meat from the grocery store?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first, let me say very emphatically, there is no proper human diet that does not include meat, period. The end. Okay? So with that being said, what if you're on a fixed income and you live in a metropolitan area? You live in an apartment on the 18th floor. You can't, I mean, maybe you could have some quail in the closet, maybe, I guess, right? Or you could have a big aquarium with some tilapia or something, but you're not really going to be able to raise your own meat. What do you do? And so I think this is a very important question. I've looked into it deeply, deeply, deeply. And what I found is that the cheapest meat you can buy at the discount supermarket is still a health food. Is it as nutritious and uninflammatory as grass-fed, grass-finished, right, cows or sheep that have lived a perfect life? Mm-hmm. No, it's not as good. But just because it's less good does not make it bad. Even though I'm talking about cheap meat from China that's been pumped full of hormones, pumped full of antibiotics, treated miserably during its life, that meat, in order for what they were fed to turn into that meat, it had to go through multiple biological filters, right? And so that's why chicken and pork are not as good as beef, because cows are ruminants, mm-hmm. right? And so cows and sheep and goats have this multi-chamber stomach that does magical things. You can't feed them too far off the beaten path or they'll just die.
Right.
Whereas a chicken and a pig, you can literally feed them anything and they'll kind of get by. Mm-hmm. And they also don't have as many filters between their mouth and the meat as ruminants. And so, but still there's enough filters between mouth and meat for a chicken or a pig, even fed junk, that their meat is still better for you than the most expensive loaf of whole grain, ancient wheat bread at Whole Foods.
So the hormones and stuff, what effect does that have if you're eating hormone stuffed meat?
Yeah, and so you hear that, and I think it's a scare tactic.
Okay.
Because initially the vegans were the ones who started talking about this, right? And now it's kind of filtered over into the other communities. But let's just think about this. So we're going to talk about antibiotics and we're going to talk about hormones, okay? Now, if one of your kids got strep throat, you took them to the doctor and they said, oh, they got strep throat. They need some antibiotics. Okay. So they'd write you the prescription for the antibiotics. Now, have you ever had to give one of your little ones antibiotics?
Yeah. Once for an ear infection.
And how many times a day did they take the antibiotic?
They were supposed to take it twice a day, but I was trying to be really careful with their gut flora, so I did once a day. But you did give it to them every single day. Yeah. Now, let's think through this. Why didn't you just give it to them once? Because the way the vegans paint this picture and the way the anti-antibiotic in livestock paint this picture is that if you give that animal antibiotics one time, it goes straight to the meat and stays there forever.
Tainted forever, yeah.
Tainted forever.
Yeah.
But so you should have just been able to give your little one dose of antibiotics, and then for the rest of their life, they would have that antibiotic in their body. No, your liver immediately starts to break down the antibiotic, and so does the animal's liver.
So why do they give all the cows the antibiotics just to say that they did?
No, it helps them put on weight faster. And so in America, that's really against the law now, because they learned this back in the 50s, 60s, that if you give them antibiotics, they'll get fatter quicker, which is good for market, right? Mm-hmm. But so in America, you almost can't do that anymore as a rancher. But other countries, who the heck knows? But here's the thing. It does make them fatter quicker, but that antibiotic is not stored in the meat. That antibiotic is broken down within hours in the animal's body. Makes sense? And then they pee and poop it out, just like we do, just like your little one did when you gave them the antibiotic once a day that should have been twice a day. They didn't die. They got over it. It worked, right? But you had to give it every day because it was gone in 24 hours.
Interesting.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk about hormones. Do you have any older friends who are on hormone replacement therapy?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. So I've prescribed hormone replacement therapy for over 20 years now. Bioidentical is what I recommend. And so for anybody listening, if you're on bioidentical hormones, when you take your dose, either of pill form or cream or however you take it, do you just take it once and that's it?
No, daily.
Daily.
Yeah,
oh.
especially like the estrogen
But
creams. and
yeah,
stuff.
but why do you use it every day?
Because it flushes out of your body.
the instant it gets in your body, your liver tags it and starts to break it down. Your kidneys grab it and you pee it out.
That's such a basic concept that I've never thought about.
There's so many things like that in nutrition that you just don't think through. You just blindly believe whoever. And because thousands of years ago, it was safe to just believe whoever kind of the leader was in your tribe. You could just believe them because first of all, if they hurt you, it also hurt them because everybody was in that together. We still operate on the same operating system as we operated on 5,000 years ago. And so in modern times, people who know how to hack that system, the best hackers are the big corporations and the big governments. They really know how to hack our system, right? They can make you'll be an apostle for some pharmaceutical, be like, this is this. And you're like, what are you even talking about? You don't know anything about that, but yet you're out here almost ready to throw hands saying, no, you should take this vaccine, or no, you should take this. You need ivermectin. What's wrong with you? Right. And people literally will come to blows.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. People get very heated over all of those.
Either about the jabby jab. I don't want to get y'all demonetized. Either about the jabby jab or about
we get
a lot of
ourselves
discussion here about
demonetized.
that.
or the alternative, right? People were emotional about this.
Yes.
Oh, very.
Now, that's a huge red flag. Anytime you're talking about something that's biological and physiological, logical's in the name. It should either make sense or not make sense. It should either work or not work. So there's no place really for emotion. Does that make
Agreed.
sense?
Yeah.
There's no place for that. Yeah. And so if you're getting emotional about a biological issue, that's kind of weird, right? Maybe you're just a weirdo. Maybe you got a psychiatric issue. I don't know. But you shouldn't be getting emotional about that. And so the hormones are gone within hours of the administration. The antibiotics are gone within hours of the administration. So if they gave the cow a shot, and the hormone they give cows is bovine growth hormone, which cows make anyway. They're just giving them a mega dose so they'll grow faster.
And that kind of brings us to the nitrates thing too. People are always like nitrates.
Now let's talk about nitrates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me see. I think I've covered those. That people with common sense will be like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. Nitrates.
Listen, I've been sharing with you guys about Angel Guild and how much our family enjoys our films and shows. This week we had the pleasure of pre-screening Green and Gold. And you guys, it was so good. It's not flashy, it's not fake, it's real. Small town real, which of course we really related to and loved. Green and Gold is about a grandfather trying to save a family farm and a granddaughter, chasing down a dream to help him do it. It's grit, it's generational loyalty, it's real family values on full display, and I know that you guys are going to love it as much as we did.
And here's the thing. It's not just a feel-good movie. It's a fight for what matters movie. It's about faith in your family, betting big when everything is on the line, and doing what needs to be done to hold it all together. That's the kind of stories and entertainment that we want to see available.
Yeah, it's yet another amazing release from Angel because they're doing movies differently. Free from the gatekeeping power players in Hollywood and the agendas of those who try to dilute your reality, rewrite your principles. Instead, Angel tells honest stories that actually mean something.
Our family has been absolutely loving Angel, and we hope that you'll check them out and join as well, because you will get access to their entire library of stories that are bold, thoughtful, and actually worth your time. Green and Gold will be available to stream on Angel Guild Premium starting July 8th, but you can start watching their entire Angel library today when you head over to angel.com/NWOS or click the link down below to sign up.
Nitrates. Now, have you ever been to the supermarket?
Yeah, I pay twice as much for nitrate-free sandwich meat.
Yeah, it says uncured.
Yeah.
Guess what? Your uncured sandwich meat has more nitrates than the cheapest bacon in the supermarket.
Way to go, Melissa.
How is that possible?
I thought I was doing it right.
No, and that's just that's what I'm saying. Smart people, we're susceptible because you're like, yeah, nitrates. I've heard that's bad. Oh, this is nitrate free.
Well, I think
it says
hot
right there
dogs
on
nitrates.
the front of the package.
Yeah.
Anything that occurs on the front of a package is marketing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's clue number one, right? So how I just said that your nitrate-free sandwich meat has more nitrates than the cheap bacon. How is that possible? The U.S. federal government allows them to put uncured or nitrate-free if they'll use celery powder. Now, guess what? Out of all the substances on planet Earth, guess what substance has the highest nitrate content?
Celery.
powder.
Yeah. But it's natural. It comes from celery, therefore it must be magical. And I guarantee you, I just made some people mad who are listening to this. They're like, he's crazy.
No, I'm not mad.
He's crazy. Not you, but people listening are like, no,
money.
what? No, that's different. And it's kind of like the difference between fructose in high fructose corn syrup and fructose in organic orange juice. If you pull up the molecules and look at them, fructose from Coca-Cola and fructose from orange juice, it's the same exact it's the same thing. It's the same molecule. But the fructose in orange juice or any fruit juice gets health washed. Oh no, that's fruit juice. No, that's got to be different. It's magically different than that monstrous, demonic high fructose corn syrup. Well, actually, some fruit juices have more fructose in them than high fructose corn syrup, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi. So that's the problem with the nitrates is some nitrates they make, some nitrates they harvest, they've genetically modified bacteria to make nitrates. Some of the nitrates are made in a chemical factory, but the molecule itself is the same exact molecule that's in celery powder. Your body doesn't know where that nitrate come from. That's number one. So there's no such thing as nitrate-free bacon or sandwich meat. They're just able to say that legally because the U.S. government gave them a pass. Okay. Now let's talk about nitrates themselves. Are they really bad for humans? So there's actually a pharmaceutical company that has a blood pressure medicine in stage 2 or stage 3 trials right now that it's a nitrate because nitrate, when you ingest it, turns into nitrites and then turns into nitric oxide. Now, wait a minute. I thought nitric oxide
beneficial
was super healthy and beneficial. One of the things when you're out in the sun with your shirt off, you don't make nitric oxides. You convert nitrates and nitrites into nitric oxide, which is super healthy. You do the same thing with those. And the pharmaceutical company, in another few years, they're going to have an FDA-approved blood pressure medicine that's literally nitrates.
Oh.
That's going to be FDA approved because it converts to nitric oxide, which does lower your blood pressure.
And I'm spending $8 on a little box of turkey.
I'm feeling so much validation on this side of this table right now because you are settling so many disputes and discussions that we've had in our household in the past.
So I was not a believer in the carnivore diet at all when he started it. I was like, whatever, you're going to do 30 days. And I'm like, there's no way this is healthy. You're eating processed meats.
Yep.
He is addicted to chomps.
Yeah.
He won't
It's
stop
convenient.
eating chomps.
Sure.
And so I'm like, those are not good for you. They're not. Like, don't tell me that's better for you than a salad. No way. But then, like, we were watching Animal, which you were in, a great documentary, and they were talking about how vegetables are trying to kill you. And I'm like, they are not. The vegetables. So, yeah, I mean, I'm somebody who's more plant-based, and then he's carnivore. So,
and I think that's a valid conversation that needs to happen. Notice I said conversation, guys, not an argument, right? But that's a valid conversation, and I do not espouse the belief that plants are trying to kill you.
Okay.
But I do absolutely know, as a biologist, that plants are trying to strongly discourage you from eating their body parts, especially their babies, which are their seeds and nuts.
right.
Yeah.
Seeds and nuts are super
Nasty,
hard
bitter.
on the, but they're,
Yes,
I mean, seeds and nuts are designed to pass through your body or animals' bodies so that they can reproduce. So it's like, no wonder we feel awful. When
In animals that don't crunch them up.
Right.
In animals that swallow them whole, actually, they don't hurt the animal at all. That's
raw
right.
almonds?
But we
Oh.
chew them up. Yeah, and raw almonds
ow.
will tear you up.
Yes.
And there are literally millions of people around the world who have chronic IBS, either diarrhea or constipation, just terrible gut. And they think their plant-based diet is part of the solution. And it's part of the problem, if not the main problem, right? Because I can't tell you, I can't even estimate how many tens of thousands of people with IBS, IBD, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, who are, as long as they stay carnivore, it's gone. It's literally like it's cured. And I think it's in remission. They still have the propensity. And if they go eat some raw almonds, guess what? or some raw kale or some raw anything, it's going to flare back up.
Interesting.
And it's sad knowing what I know. But people are so emphatic.
Yes.
They're so militant in their nutrition beliefs. And that's, you think about it, just objectively, that's kind of weird. Why do we come to blows over that can't be good for you?
Yeah, because it's hard to say that what you've done your whole life is wrong. And I mean, I look at it from a faith-based perspective as well. Like, okay, God put Adam and Eve in the garden.
Yep.
He told them to eat vegetables and fruit. And,
and I've studied that quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I'm still in the process of studying all of the scripture about this. And so when they were in the Garden of Eden, they were also immortal, weren't they?
yes.
Okay. So when at the fall, not only did they lose access to immortality, but then they suddenly started having. I mean, he almost negative, like, by the sweat of your brow you will eat wheat. Like, it ain't going to be fun. You're not going to like it, but that's part of your punishment. But then also, and so is it possible that our biology was changed when we were kicked out of the garden? Maybe. It's not recorded, but we don't know. But we do know we're not immortal anymore, so something changed.
And as soon as we weren't immortal anymore, we started to eat meat.
Yeah. And so many people would falsely go, well, that's why.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to go back to the Garden of Eden diet. No, I think it's a little more complicated than that. I think probably when we got kicked out, thanks, Adam, or thanks, Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She was the original temptress, right?
Yeah, but I think when we got kicked out, there were probably multiple things that were changed. Yeah. Not only did we lose our immortality, I don't think it's because we started eating meat. If anything, you could say, well, it was because we started eating wheat is why, right? Because I don't think there's any mention of grain in the Garden of Eden diet. I think it was all just fruits and vegetables, right? Just leaves and, there was no grain.
Tree fruits.
Right, exactly, right. And so now we're out here having to till the ground for our wheat. And then we've got the meat that it's now okay for us to eat. And then you have the story of Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
Right? And Cain gave an offering of grain. Abel gave an offering of meat, and it even goes into detail. It was the fattiest part that Abel gave. And you know what God's reaction was to the two.
Favorite Abel's.
Exactly. And a lot of preachers I've heard through the years have said or written that, well, Cain's heart was not right, or he didn't, his intention, but if you read scripture, and I've actually read it in the original, it doesn't mention Cain's mental state or his intention or if he had an evil heart. None of that's mentioned. So as far as we know, based on scripture, he gave that offering with a good, clean, pure heart. We don't know any different. It doesn't say that he had an unclean or impure thought or heart. God just wanted the fatty meat. That's what he asked for, and that's what he wanted. And so was Cain already evil, and that's why he gave the grain as an offering? Or was Cain so hurt because his offering was rejected that he then decided to live a life of evil? I don't think it's really clear in scripture. And I think either story, you could hitch your wagon to either story, and you'd be like, well, you can't disprove it, right? But I tend to go with the latter. I think that it broke his heart because he made a mistake, and God said, I don't want that junk.
And that's hard to grow and harvest. And so
right,
really
he went to all that work with the sweat of his brow, and here's some.
And Abel
God's
just
like,
killed
I don't
an
want
animal
that.
that grew itself.
Exactly, right, exactly. And so that would, that a lot of people, that would turn them to a life of crime, so to speak. If they're just, I don't want that. Get out of here with that.
Right.
So I'm not, in no way am I a religious authority or expert, but I have looked into this a lot, and I think about it and I study it. Yeah, exactly. And then I think later in scripture, it's made very clear by Peter and others that you can eat any animal. There's no religious exemption if you believe in the New Testament
Clean and
scripture.
unclean meat,
There's no such thing as that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The only unclean meat is if you find a dead animal beside the road. That might be unclean. You probably shouldn't eat that. But otherwise, it's fine. Eat your meat.
No, but it wasn't dead yet. It was still breathing.
Oh, well, that's fine. Yeah, that's
it was
fine.
still breathing.
Yeah,
it just got nicked.
Roadkill
And then
venison.
a police officer was going to put it down. And I was like, can I have that?
You put it in the trunk?
It was a different time. He was like, sure.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah, it's worth giving it a shot.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. The funny thing is he was a police officer at the time and they like recognized me as his wife and they're like, your wife's over here getting ruined. But yeah, we started raising meat rabbits. That was the very first meat that we raised, which is not a fatty meat at all. It's actually very lean. And we got a lot of that as unclean. We got a lot of that.
Yeah, yeah. And everybody has their own little set of beliefs. And I have my own little set of beliefs. Don't think I'm sitting in judgment of everybody else. We all have our own little set of beliefs. Some people it's much easier for them to imagine themselves outside their own beliefs and go, well, maybe. Just like me with my, I went from effectively, the average American adult eats a plant-based diet, even if they're not trying.
Yeah. Grain-based.
70 or 80% of their diet is grains.
Yes.
Right? And high fructose corn syrup, corns. Yeah. And they're not even trying. And it's plant-based. Right? And so I went from that. I'm like, I'm going to cut the carbs, eat more meat. Okay. I'm going to eat more meat. And so you see how I was able to, now I eat nothing but meat and eggs and occasionally fish, seafood, crustaceans, whatever. But some people, it's harder for them. For whatever reason, maybe
cultural, maybe
it's exactly.
I mean, if you're from an Asian culture,
right?
Rice
exactly.
is like
right.
rice was
right.
the
and for many people,
foundation.
Food's part of the religious belief system, and so it's very personal.
And
right?
some animals are sacred.
That's exactly right. Right. And so there's so much emotion tied up in food that it's very hard for some people to tease it out. It's not even their fault. It's because of how they were raised, what their mom said, their grandmother, that their favorite aunt said. And that's not just in your mind. That's in your heart when your mom teaches you something, right? And that's like Nisha's dad's Puerto Rican, and they grew up eating rice and beans. And when they got tired of that, they had beans and rice, right? And that was just part. And if you had asked them back then, they'd be like, oh, that's part of our heritage. That's our culture. But the truth of the matter is they were poor.
Yes, it was not a necessity.
Yeah.
It was either that or starve. So you're going to do that.
That's probably rice too. And
Oh, yeah,
I grew up
100%,
eating a
100%.
Mediterranean diet because my family's Greek. And so everything was about the Mediterranean diet. And then when that became popular, my yaya was like, see, it's the olive oil and the pitas. And
So you grew up, your family was from Greece.
Yes.
Now, was the Mediterranean diet you ate growing up, was it very low in meat, or was there quite a bit of meat and seafood?
A lot of fish and stuff, right?
yeah, it was mostly, there's so many cucumbers. Cucumber and tomato and feta
Sure,
salad
yeah.
every day.
Yeah, but
Every
if you
meal.
ask the average nutrition expert these days, a Mediterranean diet is just almost plant-based.
Yes.
But Nisha and I, we've vacationed
It is.
around the Mediterranean in multiple different countries, and we never go to the tourist restaurants. We always go 5 or 6 streets over where there's
Yeah.
no pictures on the menu, right? And none of the menus in English. That's how you know you're at a real restaurant. It's all meat and eggs and
Squid.
seafood.
A lot
It's
of
all
seafood.
meat. Yeah,
Yeah, when
Calamari,
we went to Samos, small island right off the coast of Turkey, and it was a lot of seafood. Squid was just hanging around the restaurant.
Yep.
And there was they would steam the squid, and it was amazing, and then just put lemon over it.
Absolutely. And lots of butter, lots
Yeah.
of dairy, lots of cheese, lots of stuff from animals.
Yeah, a
It's-
lot of oils and olive oil.
A true Mediterranean diet is not and never has been a plant-based diet.
Yeah.
And I've never lived there, but I've talked to enough people who have, and I've eaten at enough restaurants around the Mediterranean. It's meat and eggs and cheese
Yeah.
and butter and seafood.
And people think it's spaghetti and pizza
Yeah.
and lasagna.
More
and it's-
marketing.
Yeah, and typically in a real Italian restaurant in Italy where Italians eat, the pasta serving size is very small.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very small.
And they do say that people, like you can go to Italy with a gluten intolerance and you can eat the pasta.
You hear this.
I
You
know,
hear
I
this a
don't-
lot. There's no research that has ever
know.
verified that.
I keep hearing that.
I'm not saying that's not true. It might be true, maybe, but I don't know it to be true. But I also don't know it to be false. But I would love to do a controlled research study.
Send
on that.
Nevaeh and see if she explodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Wasn't
yeah.
the theory behind that the like glyphosate and stuff like that, they have just different
Right. And they
stipulations.
in the EU, which Italy's in the European Union, right? They have way more stringent guidelines on food. Way more stringent. You can't just put whatever like you can in the United States, right? Or you can't just buy the food from China who put God knows what
Right.
in it. Can't do that in the EU. They have tons of regulations. And so is it just that? It's just a cleaner food overall? Maybe.
Yeah.
Is there something different about how they harvest the grains? Maybe. And I try to never be militant I try to never be a stone wall, because maybe there's something I don't know, because I can look back at my early medical career. I didn't know anything about nutrition. Nothing, literally nothing. I had a nutrition class in medical school, but I didn't learn anything about just what should me and you eat.
Right.
I learned how to, feed somebody intravenously who'd been in a house fire and broke their jaw, and I had to feed them intravenously. That's what I was taught in nutrition, not what should somebody with type 2 diabetes eat to reverse it.
Well, they're not trying to reverse it.
No, it was never mentioned. They didn't even know it was possible. Yeah. And so my advice doesn't apply to everyone, but it does apply to everyone who's overweight or obese or severely obese. It applies to everyone with diabetes or pre-diabetes. It applies to everyone with fatty liver or metabolic syndrome or hypertension, because if you eat what I tell you to eat and avoid what I tell you to avoid, your chronic medical disease will improve or go completely away. And that's inarguable. And at some point, the medical societies are going to have to admit that. And with the current administration in D.C. right now, they're actually much more open to this thing. And I'm actually working with a few people behind the scenes working on a new food pyramid.
Did you get to meet RFK?
I have not. I had him scheduled to be on my YouTube channel.
Oh, wow.
Right before he dropped out.
Okay.
And right when he was running, he was going to come on. But then he dropped out, and so everything was fugazi at that point. But I've had Callie and Casey Means on my channel. I've had Marty McCary on my channel. I'd love to have Bhattacharya on my channel. I still have open invitation to all of them to let's talk about nutrition. Let's talk about a proper
Have you had
diet.
Joel Salatin on?
I have not. But I'd love to have him on my farm channel.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. He's awesome because he knows about raising real human food.
Yes.
Yeah. And rotational grazing.
Absolutely,
and
right.
Letting the animal be the animal that they are.
Because that's the healthiest animal, and a healthy animal is more nutrient dense.
Yes.
It's not that the cheap meat's bad for you. It's just less good than the meat that Will Harris or Joel Salatin raises. That's the best.
In Japan, they give them beer.
Right.
Happy cows.
Yeah,
burgers.
they're very happy. Yes, absolutely, except for the next morning. But they also are very marbled, very fatty, right? Which is tastes delicious. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, people say when you go to Japan and you get sushi, it's mostly just sashimi. They don't put rice with it. They're eating broth and fish.
Yes.
People who eat lots of rice in Asian countries, I've been told by multiple people who grew up in Asian countries, that if you've got any means at all, like in America, we would say if you're middle class or above, you're eating tons of fish and you're eating meat, you're eating stuff like that, and you have a little rice just because it's tradition, but that's not the bulk of your diet. But if you're poor, just like in America, just like literally every country in every time period, if you're the poorest of the poor, you're eating grains and beans. That's what you're eating, rice and beans. That's what you're eating because you cannot afford to do better. And rice and beans or any combination of grains and legumes will keep you from starving to death, which is a very good thing if you're on the verge of starvation.
Yeah.
Huzzah, you didn't starve. But if your goal is to optimize your health, not just keep yourself from starving to death, then rice and beans that's not going to do it for you. That's not going to optimize
and
your
being
health.
sick is expensive.
100%,
So you're better
100%.
off being healthy. Also, when he switched over to just eating meat, we were saving money at the grocery store because we weren't buying the snacks. We weren't buying the breakfast cereal and everything.
Yep.
So his diet was way cheaper
I was
than
gonna
our
say,
diet.
that was a part of my initial reluctance in actually switching things over.
Because it sounds
but
super expensive.
It does, but when I was intermittent fasting as well to go
Right.
along with it. So when you're just having a couple of steaks a day, we actually ended up saving money. Like Melissa
Absolutely.
mentioned.
Yeah.
Because when they think of a carnivore diet, they think about adding meat to their existing diet.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an added expense. They don't think it through. It's like, no, you're not going to eat any of that other stuff. You're just going to eat the meat.
Yep.
That and most carnivores will report if you're looking for sales and you're buying in bulk and splitting it up and freezing it, it's cheaper to be a carnivore.
Absolutely. So if you're out there watching or listening, don't let that stop you.
Also, being a carnivore, there's a little bit of prep that goes into it because we're so used to, in today's society, grabbing something, granola bars, especially with kids. It's so difficult. Kids are like, if you don't have 10 snacks in the pantry, they're like, there's nothing to eat. So it's very difficult, like with teenagers. My teenager loves crackers and popcorn and anything little that he can snack on.
Simple, snacky, crunchy, salty, a little sweet.
Addictive.
Yeah, absolutely. Full of starch that breaks down into sugar.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have taste buds all the way down to the upper part of our stomach. It's not just on your tongue. And although you're not conscious of the taste bud reaction in your esophagus and the upper third of your stomach, you're still getting the feedback. And so when you put a cracker, which just tastes salty, it doesn't taste sweet, you chew that up, you're starting to break down with amylase. You're breaking down the starch. And so as you swallow it, you're getting positive feedback from the taste buds, the sweet sensors, all the way down to the upper third of your stomach, but you're not conscious of it. And so that's why for a lot of people, they're like, no, I never eat anything sweet. But they're savory. They love savory, but they're carb addicts, they're sugar addicts.
That's
because
100% me.
Since this has been such a busy time for us, I was so happy when our Delete Me report came through this month because it showed us that even though we were busy with something so very important, scammers and data brokers never rest.
Yeah, for 3 years now, we have relied on Delete Me to help keep our personal information offline. And they also happen to be a sponsor of today's episode. So if you are online at all, you are at risk. For example, those random phishing calls and emails that we all get? Well, they are a sign that your personal information is going around and being sold online, which puts you at a much higher risk for scammers and even worse, identity theft.
Yeah, when we first signed up for Delete Me, they found hundreds of listings with our private data. Thankfully, their privacy experts were able to have it removed on our behalf, saving us so much time and frustration. The cool thing about Delete Me is they're always continually scanning the web to make sure that our private data doesn't pop up again.
These data brokers literally scour government sites, public information sites, and even your own social media. They will search out your name, your birthday, your past addresses, even your family members. They will then package it all up and create a profile on you, and then they will sell it to other data brokers, companies, and sadly, sometimes even scammers.
Unfortunately, you can't always control whether or not you're the target of one of these data brokers, but you can make it more difficult by taking a proactive approach to securing your personal information like we did with the help of Delete Me. Just click the link down below or go to joindeleteme.com/GSL and use our code GSL to get 20% off all consumer plans.
That's
Because
100% me.
all breaks down into sugar. And that's how Nisha was. She was never a sweet eater. Whereas me, I would eat the entire cheesecake. Literally.
That's literally
The
describes
entire
us.
hot fudge cake. I would just eat it all.
Same.
I love sweets. She never loved sweets and never loved dairy. She wouldn't drink milk as a kid. On threat of being spanked, she just wouldn't drink her milk.
Yeah.
But she loved savory, and you can eat just as much sugar, never eating something sweet. And I think that's important for people to hear. Let me say it again. You can eat actually more sugar eating a diet that does not taste sweet at all. And that a lot of people, they freak out. They're like, how's that even possible? All carbohydrates are made of some combination of starch and fiber. All of them, without exception. The carbs in broccoli, the carbs in a jelly donut. Some combination of starch, sugar, and fiber.
Yeah.
Now, the more simple the carbohydrate, the more it's just sugar, right? But there's a spectrum from a jelly donut all the way to broccoli, but it's still the carbs are carbs.
Yeah.
And they ultimately break down into glucose. Sorry, they all do. That's just, it's inarguable, right? Even fiber is made up of long chains of glucose, but our body, we don't have cellulase, so we can't break down the cellulose, so it just passes through. That's called roughage. Now, how do I say this? If you eat something and your body doesn't digest it at all, it literally doesn't even try to digest it. It just passes it through unchanged.
Corn.
Right.
Insoluble fiber,
right.
yeah.
But so think that through. Is corn, is it really a nutrient dense food that humans really need and should eat?
No.
Your gut doesn't even break it down. It doesn't even want it.
Insoluble,
It literally stamps it reject and sends it right out the poop chute. Same for nuts. If you barely chew a peanut or a almond or whatever, sunflower seeds, they'll go pass through unchanged. That should be a clue. But a lot of people see that as some kind of angelic benefit.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that fiber, it really
cleaning you
it
out.
really
Cleans
scrubbed
it, yeah.
my colon as it
Right.
went
like
through.
it's a
Right.
Like,
sponge.
here's a news flash for everybody. I'm a board certified doctor. Your colon does not need to be scrubbed. It'd be like saying, hey, have you scrubbed your eyeballs today?
Yeah.
You'd be like, no. Why would I want to do that? Or you scrub some other very sensitive area. Have you scrubbed that with steel wool today? No. Should I? Well, duh, of course not. No, and your colon doesn't need scrubbing either.
Yeah, because doesn't it cause abrasions
Yeah,
and things
absolutely.
like that?
It causes abrasions and
Inflammation.
inflammation. And for many people, that's going to lead ultimately to diverticulitis and other things like that. Your colon does not want or need to be scrubbed with rough things. That's not good.
Sharp
That's
edges.
bad. Yeah.
Little
Does that-
sunflower seeds.
Right. But do you see how in just this short time we've been talking, how many of your viewers are right now in the
Oh, yeah.
comments going, this
What
is a
about this?
load of BS.
Yeah.
I know that. No, you think you know,
Yeah.
but you don't know. And I used to think I knew, but I didn't know either. And it's okay because we can all keep gathering around this campfire. And people who currently don't believe me right now, that's totally fine. I still love you. Go and experiment. Go
Yeah.
and play around.
Yes.
Keep doing what you're doing. But if you get to the point where your health feedback, you're like, yeah, I just feel terrible. I feel miserable. I have gut issues. I have joint issues. I have skin issues. I have mental health issues. Whenever you're sick and tired of arguing and trying to prove me wrong, just do 90 days of beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And then if I
Sounds like
am
it would
truly
be-
wrong, then you can come at me in the comments and say, Bubba, I did your stupid diet and I got fill in the blank, whatever you got that's negative. Fine, come at me.
Yeah.
But what I almost without exception, like 99% of the messages are, I thought you were full of crap until I did this. And now I'm carnivore, or now I'm ketovore, or now I'm keto constantly because if I try to go back to the old diet, I get sick again.
Yeah.
I gain weight again. My blood sugar goes up. My gut flares up. My skin flares up, whatever. And they're like, I wanted to not believe you, but I tried it and you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I was skeptical. And I mean, I told you while I was doing it, I've never felt better. The mental clarity, the energy, there was a total lack of fatigue.
Yep.
And it was very abrupt.
Yep.
So
The other thing that happened is you went on carnivore. We didn't have a single pregnancy scare for 10 years, just doing what we
this
were
too,
doing.
Yeah, really interesting.
And literally he went on carnivore and I was like pregnant in 30 days. I was like, dang it, Jeremy.
Yep.
And we're in our
Yep.
40s.
Yep.
Like,
So let me tell you a quick little story about
he's
that.
out there.
I know he's beautiful.
Our little carnivore
He's
baby.
beautiful. So when I was first recommending keto, I was very hesitant. This is years ago, right? I thought it was a temporary weight loss hack. Cut the carbs down really low, lose the weight, then you can kind of go back to whatever, right? And I had two women come in, unrelated, just two different cases. One was 48, one was 51. One was very perimenopausal. She was going through it, and the other one thought she was done with menopause at 51. When they came back in 6, I was like, oh, they're overweight. They had prediabetes or diabetes. I can't remember exactly, but I said, you need to do this keto. Meat, heavy keto. It's meat, mainly meat, a little bit of veg, a few berries, a few nuts. That's keto, right? Keto's not keto cake and keto candy and keto pie.
Right. All those markets.
That's
Yeah.
marketing, exactly. If it
Keto
says
ice cream bars.
if it says keto on the front of the label, that's marketing.
They're so high in carbs. If you read the
100%.
labels, there's tons of carbs
It's
in it.
ridiculous. Yeah. So 6 months later, they come back in for refills or rechecks or whatever. They're both pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
One,
they were pregnant? I thought you were going to say they were
pregnant.
cycling.
they're both. Well, the 51-year-old had started cycling again,
Yeah, that's-
and not only that,
That's not
but
really a
was
selling point.
also pregnant. Also pregnant.
Oh, my
now,
God.
the one lady, the 48-year-old, was super happy.
Mm.
She had wanted to have one more, and she had just recently remarried, and they got to have their baby.
That's awesome.
The
Yeah.
51-year-old was not at all happy.
I bet.
Not at all
That's
happy
a
with me.
big surprise
And
at
she was
51.
mad at me for months. But I'm innocent in the fact that I had no idea. I thought it was just a weight loss hack.
Yeah.
You lose 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds and then whatever. I had no idea how deep that the proper human diet reached into human physiology because I was still learning at that time, right? And that was kind of the epiphany for me, like, good God, this diet, this is not just weight loss. I don't understand how it made these women more fertile.
Yeah.
And then I had another guy, he was so obese, he had to go to the co-op and weigh on the feed scale. He could not weigh in any doctor's office. My scale went to 450. He would just max out. So he had to go to the co-op when he first started coming to weigh, and he would come and say, he would go to the co-op and weigh, and then he would tell me what he weighed, and I'd put it in the chart. He was scheduled to have both knees replaced. I said, dude, why don't you just try? And I told him just straight carnivore, just fatty meat and eggs and cheese, whatever. He's like, I got nothing to lose, right? I forget 500 and something pounds when he started. So he went and did, and he came in that time, he was walking on 2 canes. He had a cane in each hand, and he was a preacher, still is. We're still friends. And the 3 months he came back for recheck, he was walking with 1 cane. And he said, my knees feel a lot better. I called the orthopedic surgeon and I put off my knee replacements. I was like, yeah, if they're not hurting, there's no point doing the surgery. He comes back in 3 more months without a cane. And he said, I haven't not walked with a cane in years. It's been years since I didn't walk with a cane. And also at that 6-month checkup, he could weigh on my scales.
Wow.
So his story and the 2 women that got pregnant at 48 and 51.
That's crazy.
That was the point. I was like, there's way more to this that I don't understand. I got to go back and get my physiology textbooks out. I got to get my biochem out. I got to go back through everything because this is a huge deal. If it can make women become more fertile and make people with literal proven bone-on-bone arthritis have 0 knee pain, what's happening here, right? And so that's what really got me on fire to just dig all the way to the bottom of this and try to figure out what is a proper human diet, because this sure seems close if it's doing things like that. And what are all the principles of a proper human diet? And so I didn't discover this. I just rediscovered it. Like I said earlier, many doctors have done over the decades and the centuries. There's a lot to this. Is it the proper human diet? I don't know of a better candidate right now. And let me be very clear. I'm not saying that carnivore is the proper human diet. I'm saying there's a spectrum that includes only real whole foods, 1 ingredient foods, no grains, no beans. That's poverty food. That's what you feed your slaves or prisoners. That's not optimization food. From low carb to ketovore to carnivore, that's a proper human diet spectrum with only real whole, unprocessed foods that don't include vegetable seed oils, sugar, grains or beans. Those things are poverty foods or marketing foods, right? So are you ready to try carnivore now?
I think I could do like Nisha's diet. So I follow Nisha on Instagram and then I watch her vlog and it's great. And
isn't she awesome?
I was just attracted to how pretty she was. I was like,
she's so pretty.
She's doing something right.
It's got to be offensive to some people. She's so pretty.
I know.
Right?
When I hopped on that Zoom call with you guys, it was like 8 a.m. my time and she looked so good. I was like,
yeah, she woke up like that. Yeah.
I know. I could tell. No makeup, fresh face, natural hair. I was like, why is this woman so beautiful? So I started following her because I wanted to know what she knew. And so I feel like I could do her diet. She has these beautiful salads. She has a gorgeous garden. Yeah. And so I think that that's very attractive to women, which we have a large woman audience. And it's like, okay, maybe we could start there and then
start low carb or keto with lots of beautiful vegetables and some berries and a little bit of fruit. Absolutely, you can start there. Yeah, because the enemy is ultra processed food made by big food manufacturers. Yes. That is the literal devil in nutrition. Okay, and you have to call it out for what it is. You can't be like, well, because you'll see articles. Well, some ultra processed food may actually be good for you. No. Shut up. Yeah. Shut up. Shut right up. Okay. There is nothing that's made in a factory that's healthy for a human being. Just like that's true for every other mammal on planet Earth. There is species-specific, species-appropriate foods that species has been eating for thousands and thousands of years. That's real food for that animal, whatever that animal happens to be. And there's ultra-processed junk because, Purina, they make ultra-processed food for dogs and cats. And, you ask anybody in the animal care space, feline diabetes, sky high,
cancer,
canine diabetes, canine cancer, all of our pets. And the vets are literally, they sell the kibble in their office like, oh, this is magical kibble. This is special, but actually it just costs twice as much and they get a cut. Kibble is terrible for your pet. Your dogs and cats are carnivores.
Yep.
I'm sorry if you thought your cat was a vegan or your dog was a vegan, that's pet abuse. I'm sorry.
We have a golden retriever. He'll eat anything, but I know he's a carnivore.
It's right.
But yeah.
Because if you leave some broccoli on the counter and you walk out, he might look at it and nibble it. But if you leave a steak on the counter and you walk out, the steak's gone.
We had that happen. Yeah,
He
right off
knocked
the
over
grill.
my steaks.
Yeah,
100%.
right off
I
the
set him
grill.
aside.
100%.
I mean,
Right.
he was
Right.
like, I don't care what is about to happen to me.
Yeah.
It was within.
But I
Worth the
guarantee
risk.
you, if you were grilling some onion or broccoli, he might have sniffed it, but he wouldn't risk third-degree burns to get the broccoli or the onion.
He
but
does go into the garden and help himself.
Sure. And our dogs will eat blueberries.
Yeah.
They'll eat, but
Tomatoes off the
But
vine.
what do they lose all of their rationality over?
Steak.
It's always meat. It's always meat.
Yeah, steak.
Yeah. Because they're carnivores.
Yeah.
And any vet that says that it's safe and healthy to feed a dog a vegan diet,
Yeah.
that should be a misdemeanor.
Or
what is
grain-based.
wrong with you?
Yeah.
That's pet abuse. What are you doing? Yeah, grain-based
And they will
kibble.
get sick.
They 100% they're going to get sick. They're going to die years sooner than they would have died otherwise.
Yeah, we realized that we had a Chinese Shar-Pei, and we were just feeding him Costco food.
Sure.
You know,
It's
what the
cheap.
breeder
That's
said.
what was
and easy.
recommended.
Yeah, that's what the breeder said. Like,
Cheap
this
and
is
easy,
what I
yeah.
feed him. And by 2 years old, he was getting fevers. He was inflamed. He was just awful. So I started just making his food. And he is the longest living Shar-Pei I know of. He turned 15 and then passed
Right.
away, but from cancer. And I blame it on the fact that he was so sick the first 2 years. I think we just combated his
You did.
cancer.
You paused all the bad
Yes.
stuff for years and years and years.
Yeah, the breeder's
But
like 15.
a lot of people get that argument, like, yeah, kibble is just junk.
Oh, yeah.
But you have to understand there are millions of people feeding their children the effective equivalent of human kibble.
Yes.
It's literally
Breakfast
just
cereal.
kibble. It's kibble.
It's
It's
Yeah,
junk food kibble.
yeah.
That's what you're feeding your kids. And people don't think about it, so it doesn't hit them. They're not doing it on purpose.
Right.
They don't hate their kids. They're
Yeah.
not trying to damage their
Yeah,
kids.
it's like you love your kids. You want them to be happy. You want them to have what they want and be excited.
Sure.
You get them a Lunchable and they're so excited.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's garbage and it's not actually loving.
Exactly.
It's not loving to do that. Like
Yeah.
you can cut up little carrots and things like that, and you can meal prep for your kids.
Sure.
You can grill up chicken. You can have steak bites in the fridge, and they're going to go for whatever's convenient.
That's right.
So if you do a little prepping,
Yeah.
they're going to be just as happy with that.
Just remember, kids typically don't have keys to the car.
Yeah.
They don't have a credit card. They can't DoorDash. They right unless they've stolen your identifier,
Yeah.
right? And so they're going to eat what you put in the kitchen because you're the one that went to the supermarket. And so if your kitchen contains a bunch of junk, they'll eat that, of course, because there's a reason we don't let kids vote because they don't have the wisdom and the intelligence to cast a smart vote. That's why we shouldn't also let them be in charge of what they eat and don't eat. If you went down the wrong road as a listener and you're like, yeah, my kids, I've just let them eat whatever for years. Your kids are not going to die if they skip a meal or two.
Yeah.
And I also don't want you to become the keto or carnivore Nazi and just clean everything out overnight and say, that's it, by
Yeah.
God, from this day forward. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Just every time you go to the supermarket, buy more fruit, buy more veg, buy more meat, buy less of the junk. Forget the Lucky Charms. Oh, God, I'm so sorry. I forgot the Pop-Tarts, honey.
Yeah.
But I did get you some blueberries.
Yeah. And,
Right?
they'll love it.
And they might whine for a minute, then they're going to eat the blueberries,
Yeah.
and it'll be fine, right? Nobody will die. And every time you shop, you just buy more real food, and you forget to buy the other junk.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you've got a paleo household.
Yeah.
Every single thing in there is real, whole, one ingredient food, and you've done it over 6 months. So there was not a huge blow up explosion argument. It just happened in little increments.
Yeah, and instead of buying Doritos, buy thin sliced beef and make oven jerky.
100%.
If you had a bag of oven jerky in the pantry, kids are going to go crazy.
Once you
for that.
learn how to make jerky right,
Oh, it's so good.
it's heaven.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, and they might complain about the Doritos a time or two,
Yeah.
but you're not going to argue or fight. You're going to be like, "I'm so sorry. I know I'm such a dumb parent. I forgot the Doritos, but baby, I made this jerky. Try it.
Yeah.
Just see if you like it." And if they're like, "No, I'll never eat that," say, "Okay, well, it's fine. You don't have to
Yeah.
eat. Go play." And that's a magic sentence for kids.
Yeah.
I'm not going to eat that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Go play.
Yeah.
See you later. Bye. Guess what? When they become truly physiologically hungry, not bored,
Yeah.
but not mad, just truly hungry, guess what? That when they smell that real food, it's hardwired in them. They're not going to not eat that. And I can hear the parent right now. I hear you saying, no, you don't know my kid.
Yeah.
My kid would starve to death before they would eat.
No, they won't.
Bet.
Yeah.
Bet me. Let them go. Let them skip a meal or two. It's not going to hurt them a bit. Human children have been not eating for days, for millennia.
Yeah.
It's actually more normal to skip meals than it is to eat 3 meals a day with snacks in between.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the weird thing that we do these days.
Yeah,
I think that goes for everybody.
We
You'd be amazed at
Absolutely.
how long you can go without.
Oh, absolutely. The average person, and I say this in jest, but it's also true. I could abduct somebody who's like, no, you don't understand. If I don't eat every 2 hours, I get hangry, I this, that, the other. I could take that person and lock them in my barn and give them water and salt. They could live in my barn without eating a single thing for 3 months. 3 months, no food. They'd be fine.
Have you
They'd
heard
be
this?
really pissed.
Have you heard the story of the guy who just went a year without eating and just drank
the
water?
record's 762 days.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had water and vitamins. He was English, and this happened back in the 70s or 60s, but he was morbidly obese.
Yes.
Huge.
Yeah.
And he lost 500 or 600 pounds.
Yes.
And he went almost 2 years without eating anything.
So it goes to show.
So, we're all taught the 3 minutes, 3 days, 3 weeks, right? If you don't have air for 3 minutes, you die. Water for 3 days, food for 3 weeks. None of that's true.
Yes.
Now the 3 minute thing on oxygen, that's pretty hard.
Yeah.
That's pretty true. That's pretty true. But there are people who have dry fasted for a week.
Yeah.
No problem. Right. Now I don't recommend that, but we can do that.
Yes.
But food, oh dude, you can go for months without eating. Even me and you who are relatively in good shape, you and I are still 15% body fat, which is not bad. That's normal.
Right.
And so that's another thing. There's so many rabbit holes. Human beings are the fattest primate on planet Earth. And it's not because we overeat. We're designed to be fattier. Human babies have twice as much body fat as a chimpanzee baby or even a gorilla baby. Our babies are just chunks of fat. That's good. That's not bad. That's normal. Now, a 12-pound baby, that's not good. There's some metabolic problems going on there.
Yeah.
But that 7, 8, 9-pound baby that's just got the cheeks and the thighs, that's a healthy human baby. And even a healthy human adult male, 10 to 20% body fat that's the ideal. When you see these guys on the cover of Muscle and Fitness and they're like 4% body fat,
Depleted.
that's not healthy.
No.
They will not live to be healthy old men. They will never live to be 100. That's unhealthy. For women, it's 15 to 30% body fat. That's the healthy range. And no woman wants to have 20, 25, 30% body fat, but that is normal. That is healthy for a woman to have that much body fat. And it's also attractive to men. For women
this all
to
the
have
time.
that 15 to 30% body fat. Look at her looking at him. I feel like I need to step out.
No.
He's always telling me
No,
I'm
she was
too
looking
thin.
at him in a good way. No,
It's not like contentious
I
or
tell him
combative.
he's
But
too thin, and he tells me I'm too thin, and we both like each other with a little bit more body fat.
Yep.
And so,
Yep. But that's actually biological. That's not. Because so many things, like you said earlier, there's so many social constructs that are just false. They're not based on anything. But that's not a social construct. That is what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's women that tell us to be thin, and maybe they do it so that they can have the men. And they're like, get
Are
really
women
skinny.
like that?
You look
Are women,
great.
would women do that to other women?
No, they would never.
Nisha would say yes, they would.
Of course they would. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's just we don't even know that's why we're encouraging
That's like
other women to be skinny.
The ultimate revenge, because they're going to suffer to get that skinny, and then they're not going to get the man because they're too skinny. Oh, that's evil. Man, you guys are rough.
I know.
Because me and him, we would just go outside and fight. But y'all are going to low key.
That's why we're encouraging the salads.
That's it.
See?
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, now
Deceit.
I've just unlocked the female.
You let the cat out of the bag. Now all
did.
women know.
Oh, I didn't even know that's what we were doing.
That's it. And is some of it unconscious?
I think
for
so.
sure. Yeah.
Maybe.
100%.
Fascinating. Humans are the most fascinating creature on planet Earth. I love studying humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm not one, right? Like, but I mean, I just love our species because we're so complicated.
I know.
And we complicate the simplest stuff.
Yeah.
And then we try to simplify the complicated stuff.
Also true.
What's wrong with us?
I don't know.
We're humans. That's what.
Fallen nature.
Embrace it. Love it. We're humans.
Yep.
We can't help it. But man, ain't it exciting and interesting?
Yeah, we're here for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's super exciting. Well, I think I hear our keto
was
baby
gonna
crying
say-
in the hallway.
Dr. Barry, thank you so much for your
man,
time.
it's
Really
a pleasure.
appreciate it. We got baby outside
Yeah,
crying.
let's
We're
go
going to
play
start
with
to
the
wind
baby.
this down. You were such a tremendous wealth of knowledge. I have additional questions after having this conversation. And I'm sure many of our audience members do as well. Where can they find you?
So I've got a little YouTube channel. I've got over
It's a
50
big YouTube channel.
I've got over 1,500 videos. So I don't want you to watch them all. What I want you to do is whatever medical conditions you have or you're worried about or a loved one has, you're going to go to YouTube and in the search bar type in Dr. Barry hypertension, Dr. Barry fatty liver, Dr. Barry acne, Dr. Barry PCOS, Dr. Barry depression. And you'll find the videos that I've made that you need to listen to. Watch those videos. And then try what I say for 90 days. If it doesn't work, come back in the comments and you can call me any name you want to. I'll leave the comment there if it doesn't work. If it does work, come back and leave a comment. And I'll also leave that comment as well.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I'm going to also link the wonderful, beautiful Nisha down below too for all of you ladies out there. Because
Yes, please do. And then also let me give a plug to my new book that I wrote with my good friend Kim Howerton, who's a health coach, called Common Sense Labs. Because so many doctors don't uncover metabolic disease like prediabetes. They could uncover it 10 years earlier, but they don't check the right labs. And same goes for thyroid, because Kim Howerton had undiagnosed hypothyroidism for over 10 years. Saw 10 different doctors, some preeminent world authorities. They missed her hypothyroidism because they didn't check the right labs. So the book is called Common Sense Labs, and it's available for pre-sale on Amazon. And eventually, when it comes, I think you can get it pre-sale on Barnes & Noble as well. But it'll be in all bookstores. Common Sense Labs. It's the second edition.
Okay.
And it's updated. It has 4 times more information than the self-published version.
Okay.
And
let's put a link for that.
for so many people who don't have, their doc just doesn't check these things, you could be suffering from an undiagnosed disease for decades.
Oh, yeah.
Suffering and not know it because your doctor just didn't check the labs. And this book tells you which labs to ask for. And it also tells you how to ask. And it tells you the ICD-10 codes to tell your doctor when they say, oh, your insurance won't pay for that. You can be like, dummy, here's the codes. Put these in there and it'll pay for it.
That's amazing. That's so cool because so many people are so frustrated with going to doctor after doctor after doctor and then waiting 6 months and then getting a referral and then 6 months to a specialist and then having no answers.
Yep. And there are also now online labs where if your doctor just flat out refuses to order the labs that my book tells you that you definitely need checked, you can go to a website like ownyourlabs.com, and there's several others. You can order it yourself. Get it yourself, unless you live in New Jersey or New York City or Massachusetts, because it's currently illegal there. So I would encourage everybody in New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts to talk to your state legislator and your state senator and say, what the hell's wrong with you? Why does everybody else in America have this freedom and I don't have this freedom?
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will get all that links down below with Dr. Ken Barry. Honored to speak with you. Thank you for your
My
time.
pleasure.
Really appreciate
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Good to
you.
finally do this in person.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
so
for
excited.
sure.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Let's go buy some steaks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
let's eat.
Go eat some steak.
Living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north